it's time for some talking, but not by me. Here to lead a discussion on film and architecture is film critic Anders E. Larsson. So welcome, Anders. And tonight's laureates. Would you please join us? Christoph Roos, please. Would you join us on stage? And also Erik Arnbom och Karin Fahlén for a discussion about. I hope you got a notice about this discussion before.
Now we have. How many of you has seen these films, by the way? The Big Leap and Stockholm Stories. Well, I thought you have seen The Big Leap in person. But some of you. Anyway, we can start by a question which goes like this. In both these films, the city itself acts like a character, a person in its own right. Perhaps especially in Stockholm Stories, but also in The Big Leap. Not only as a backdrop, as a kind of mirror for the longings or the expectations of the people inhabiting the city. So would you, start with you, Karin. What would you say Stockholm is like as a character? Is it a dysfunctional character? Is it a cold character? How would you characterize it?
In our movie?
In your movie.
I would say that Stockholm is like a metaphor for the people's inability to meet and to connect with each other. And I also lately, not in the beginning of making this film, but maybe in the editing of it, I looked upon the city as like a therapist for these characters, like somebody who'd point them in the right directions when they were lost, and maybe ask the questions that are not always the questions you want to hear, but the questions you need to hear, and maybe also making these people, waking them up in a way into doing what they need to do and not so much what they want to do.
Like a catalyst or something?
That's good therapy.
Good therapist, yeah. And you, Christoph, is the city in your film also a kind of therapist?
I think that architecture in feature film is natural ingredients always, almost. So we creating stories and characters always very often use architecture to describe characters, to describe feelings and so on. But in our movie the architecture of the actual city is something which doesn't exist.
You created it from scratch.
Yes. So we have to use our picture of bad architecture created by human vanity, bad ideas, and so on and so on.
So you say the buildings in your film are a typical example of bad architecture in your point of view?
Not exactly. The inspiration was Dubai or Tower of Babel of how to say Babel Tunet.
Yeah, the Tower of Babel. Yeah.
Tower of Babel. So in both cases, this architecture is it's something negative. Although we have good examples in Dubai, probably Tower of Babel was nice as well. But you know. It contains the will to be God, and this will creates catastrophe. And in this movie, we meet three characters and the edge of catastrophe, financial crisis, and so on. They are trying to commit suicide, and they suddenly, and it's a result of financial crisis, and they start to talk about God, and they represent the society. What is common? There's a lot of common things, but one of the great common things is relation to God. So one is hard believer, the other one is atheist, the third one is
believer sometimes.
agnostic. So these three people represents the society of today, but the city is represents the world they created. So
somehow they built their own catastrophe.
yes. So we see the creators and we see the result. And for this reason, the architecture is the first character in the movie. So as I said, we spend it 90% of the time to create the architecture. But the main idea was to not copy actual architecture by city we know. It was the idea of extremely catastrophic stage of maybe the catastrophic future we can meet. So
if you go take a step back to Stockholm, which is a real city, probably with its own disasters and catastrophic scenarios ahead, but still, if we go into more detail about how you actually find the locations, how we're thinking in terms of using Stockholm as a character, can you tell us a bit about the start of the process? And I mean, after the script is written, and then you go to find locations. How do you go about that?
Well, my photographer Mattias Rud, he was available for this project at quite an early stage, which was great for me, as this was my debut feature film, and it was also his debut feature film. So we were quite anxious to
get it right.
And so what we did was that we had a very small car that we went around in, and we tried to find all the places in Stockholm that we felt represented our aesthetic view of beauty, you can say. And also, I have been obsessed by stone in different shapes and forms for a long time, because I've worked on another project where I investigated the nature of different stones. So we were trying to look for different stones in different rooms, and if we had if we were going to use a bank, let's say, we had to find a bank made with stone walls. So we always looked for stone in different shapes, and glass, all the hard materials we could find, because I was also having this vision of these characters, these vulnerable characters with their skin behind glass or next to the hard, dead mass of
They're
stone.
often separated by glass.
Often separated in the movie, exactly, and often with a wall of whatever stone was available. And we have one love scene in the film, which is between the young couple, and I was still obsessed by finding this stone environment for them, and we decided it was going to be an exterior place to shoot. So we eventually just thought it's Milles Garden, which is a museum, Milles Collins, and his sculptures in stone, and also the stone walls and the stone terraces, and he was probably quite obsessed by stone too, because there's a lot of different kinds of stones.
No doubt.
So that, no doubt. So that was interesting for us to explore the contrast between human and stone. And also, as soon as we saw a tree or something, we had lots of people running to dismantle it from leaves, as to abolish all living things that could possibly grow in the city, to enhance this vision in a way. And also we worked, actually, this sounds really like, I don't know, have I been smoking something? But we also worked a lot with different levels of the city. So we started out in the underground, and I had my own mission to bring them up, to elevate them slowly.
All through the movie.
All through the movie, and the last meeting of the people take place on a restaurant 33 meters above ground, where they hang virtually in the air. And that was only my own, I don't know if anyone saw it or felt it or whatever, but it was a thought I had and something I wanted to try. And also the most emotional meetings take place in these kind of places with stone and different levels of meetings.
Parking garages.
Staircases, elevators, all these sorts of things. I wanted to kind of underline the feeling of that special scene, you know.
Eric, as a scriptwriter, this is based on a short story compilation by Jonas Karlsson, a Swedish actor and nowadays also successful author. Or you could describe this, the book and the movie, of course, as well as a kind of shortcuts where people intersect with each other at this restaurant called Gondolen, high up in Middag. How did you go about when you were thinking to, you know, get this coldness, these chilly things, this unattachment, which is in the short stories, to put down the script?
Well, the most challenging part of that process was that every inner conflict had to be transformed to like verbs and nouns.
Externalized.
Yes. So that was quite hard, but also very satisfying because I really loved the book. I loved the characters and the atmosphere. It was haunting and funny and absurd and moving. But at the same time, it was the stories. There was so many situations and details that I loved, but you had to transform it into actual story, and that was quite hard. But I had to start somewhere, and I started and I wrote and wrote and rewrote, and suddenly I had something that could like 5 or 6 stories, and start to puzzle them together.
You start with dialogue, or just to the storyline?
Storyline, always storyline, and character as well. And about the architecture bit, maybe you manipulated me a bit. So, now when you talk about it, I haven't heard you talk about this as well before.
I didn't want to.
Okay.
Probably manipulate. Advance.
So the hardest part, I think, was to actually transform it into something, the inner conflict. If the books are inner monologue, films are not. So.
Krzysztof, I was thinking about the characters in your short film. Have you seen Stockholm Stories?
No,
No.
but I have to see it.
I think you should. But the thing is, if you have a comparison,
A professional anledning. Reason.
but I was thinking there's a big difference between, in both movies you have big shiny glass buildings, even more so in Krzysztof film, of course, with the skyscrapers. There's a big difference between how the characters are interacting in Stockholm Stories and The Big Leap. In Krzysztof film, they're very outspoken, they're very kind of harsh, speaking in a kind of loud voice, which is the opposite in your film. They're kind of eternalizing everything, almost speaking to themselves rather than each other. And I was thinking, Krzysztof, how did you work, or the director and all your team work with the actors in your case? I mean, you shoot on a green screen, you wanted to make this kind of film where you get conflicts where you're in a moral dilemma, outspoken. How did you work with the set aside contra the actors to make them function in this built-up environment?
It's probably more difficult to act for actors in a very artificial environment as we whole city was built in computers. It was computer created, but the real thing was only the roof and then the part of the front with the clock. So I don't know. They had difficult challenge to act as it was 300 meters down or 500 meters. But in really it was half 1 meter or something like this, and then it was green. So everything was green everywhere. So we were actors who wasn't green, but.
I'm also thinking about the way. I mean, if you shoot an actor as a cinematographer in a more ordinary kind of set design, you can work also with the dilemmas and with conflicts. In your case, how did you? What I'm going to actually try to figure out is the way you relate the actors to the buildings in your film. The buildings are loud, high, and kind of outspoken, and as well as the actors are, but still you have this kind of calm quality within the acting as well. You understand what I'm drifting? Yeah. And how do you accomplish that as a cinematographer? I mean, this is your specialty, your field.
Actually, it was very dynamic as well, because you have the wind, you have propellers and everything. So for director, it was hard task to communicate with them through the megaphone, shouting to them. So it was very dynamic in real on the set. So and they was hanging on metal wires with cells and then with everything. So Gustav Skarsgård was hard in your privates. So he said, please guys, I have to make children very soon, so be kind for me. So they had enough with dynamics to not be able to force to pretend the situation. So
other hands full.
So it wasn't a problem, no.
Well, just to go back to Stockholm Stories. To wrap this up, we're talking about direction from your part. The thing is, with the actors in Stockholm Stories, they managed to keep themselves quite constrained, quite restrained, and they somehow managed to, or you managed to get them to act against Stockholm, not as a backdrop, as a character. How did you think in terms of energy? How did you want them to, and the almost kind of heightened sense, they're not acting natural. There's a hypersensitivity in the acting, kind of actually a bit corny somehow, not realistic acting. But it makes sense and gets realistic in the face of the city. How do you work with that?
Well, as it's a multi-plot story, which means that it's 5 different main characters. So to begin with, that's really hard when you have 5 people you have to follow, and that's also something that Eric had to work out in a way. So for me, as a caster, as I casted myself, because I wanted total control of the cast, for me as a caster, I tried to think of 5 very disparate characters, both in the way they looked and in their energy and in the way they came across. So for me, I suddenly discovered that I thought the best thing for me to do is to find different dysfunctions that are very clear, not so subtle dysfunctions for these characters. So I looked at manic, depressive, I looked at hyper, whatever, Asperger, as for Cecilia, the woman,
Different mental
So,
diagnosis.
yeah, I gave them different diagnoses, just for myself. I never told them this, of course. So,
You never told me.
and I never told them, and don't ever mention this because then they may turn it against me. But I did, yeah, thank you. So Johan, for example, was the kind of main character in this multiplot. He never slept, for instance, and of course we never saw a bed in his home, and we never saw him sleep. And you know, we worked just to be very precise and clear in the decisions we made about who they were, to have this, what you experienced, transformation that may be a little bit subtle. Did I answer your question?
Oh, sure you did.
I don't know. I don't really know.
Well, any questions from the audience?
If I want to see the movies, how should I go about it?
Good question.
Out on DVD, yes, I think it released yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Hemmakväll.
Okay, I like that.
And iTunes.
And the big league.
The Big Rip.
The big you can see on Vimeo.
On Vimeo.
Oh, okay.
Video.
Yeah. But you have to have the code. The code is,
Can you give me the code?
yeah.
I will
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much, Karin Fahlén, Erik Ahlbom och Kirsti Plus.